This is how you can learn thousands of sentences to learn to speak any language. Step one is writing everything you want to be able to say. Make a list of all the topics you normally talk about, all the situations, interactions you think you will have, like introducing yourself, meeting people, talking about yourself, ordering things, buying things, interacting with taxi drivers, whatever. Absolutely everything. Think of every situation, every interaction, and every conversation topic. This is a long list, all right? And you won't be able to write it, to complete it the first time. So the first time, just write a list of topics, and then for each one of them, write everything you want to be able to say in each one of them. As many sentences as possible. You'll need hundreds of sentences. But don't worry, if it's not complete, and it won't be complete because this is a lot of work, we'll work on it later as well, right? I'll show you how. But first, you need to have something to work with. So you write the basics, talk about yourself, meeting people, talk about your work, your hobbies, where you're from, blah, blah, blah. And once you've got that, you translate it into the target language. Like this, right? You following me? Step number two is taking those sentences that you've written and pasting them in some sort of text to speech software. This is TTSMaker. It's pretty good. I use it a lot. I highly recommend using it, but you can use any other. There are many of them. You paste it, you select a voice you like with an accent you like. If you're learning Spanish from Spain, you take one of these. It's Mexican Spanish. There's lots of different voices and lots of different languages to choose from. And once you find one that you like,
TTSMaker es un generador de voz profesional que utiliza tecnología de inteligencia artificial.
once you've selected one, you click here and convert to speech, and you get an audio file.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
This is 8 seconds because it's 4 sentences, but if it was 100 sentences or 300 sentences, it would be between 5 and 15 minutes, right? Normally, 100 sentences is around 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes usually. So you can do this with hundreds of sentences. Again, write down everything that you want to be able to say, at least an initial list to start working on your speaking skills, and then create audio files here. Step three is creating a bilingual text. And you can see here that I've got the English and the Spanish in two columns. This is because this is the DeepL translation I created earlier. And this is the automated translation using Google Translate. If you use this translation code, EN is English and ES is Spanish. You change that depending on the language. And you get this value here. And then if you type something, you get. Oh, sorry. That was the other way around. You get a Spanish translation here or translation into whatever language you choose to learn. If you do it like this, it's faster and easier. You just have to paste your lines here and it'll automatically translate it. If you rather use this because it's more accurate, you see it's not exactly the same because like this is more formal than this. This is informal. This is informal for some reason, and yeah. So it's translation are slightly different, but when you start learning a foreign language, these things are pretty trivial. The important thing is learning a lot of vocabulary, right, and learning the sentences. And if you go back and forth between formal and informal in the beginning, it's not a big deal. Once you're able to speak relatively fluently and you're able to communicate effectively and you understand the language, you'll eventually outgrow those problems and you'll learn to speak the right way, right? So how do you learn these sentences? Once you've got hundreds of sentences and audio files and bilingual text like this, and you can use either of them, you start listening to the audio file. You play it and you listen to it while reading, right, from start to finish. Like I said, 5 minutes at around 100 sentences. So, well, like, yeah, it depends on the language, all right? But you should calculate 45 minutes is 45, 50 minutes is more or less 1,000 sentences. So 100 sentences, like 3 to 5 minutes normally. But doesn't matter that much. It's just press play and read while listening from start to finish. And you can review hundreds of sentences fast. Now the first time you will not remember them, and you will have to look at the translation. But then you play it again, and this time you'll have to look at the translation much less this time, because well, you just read them before, right? And you listen to them. And you do it one more time, like a third time, and this time you'll have to look up much fewer of the sentences. And you keep doing this until you don't have to look up anything, which is normally after like 5 to 10 reviews in a short list. If it's a huge list, it's different, right? But if you've got several hundred sentences, it shouldn't take too long. And also, you can just put the audio file on your phone and listen to it over and over and over again while you work out or while you go for walks or things like that. So you get extra repetition with that. Repetition is really important. And someone asked yesterday in the comments that if it was worth it to continue listening to the sentences you want to learn once you understand them. And the answer is yes, because you understanding them doesn't mean that you're able to remember them fast enough to then use them, right? You need around 10 reps of listening and reading, listening and reading to recognize them easily, to understand them. These are approximate numbers, by the way. It depends on the person. But let's say 10 reps for understanding and 20 reps for remembering them easily and using them like that when you need them. So even when you understand them easily, continuing to listen to the same lines and reading them over and over again will do much more for your speaking than listening to random stuff. Yeah, a lot of repetition is really important. So you read by listening over and over again. Once you understand it easily, you start shadowing as well. So you are listening to it, to the audio file, while you're reading, and you say everything aloud. You could do this from day one, but a lot of people find it really difficult. So maybe do it a few times, like read while listening, and then once you don't have to look up much because you understand, then you start saying it aloud alongside the audio file. And you should do that over and over again. All right. And if you do this, just by doing this, you learn a lot of sentences very quickly. Now, here's where the magic happens. If you learn a few hundred sentences, you'll be able to speak conversationally, more or less, in some areas. Like you'll already like, you won't be fluent, obviously, but you'll be able to say a few things, which is useful. But if you also then keep adding stuff to the list, you'll be able to learn more and more sentences fast. And the best way to do this is you take your phone, and when you are out and about, you talk to yourself and you pretend to send audio voice messages to someone, and you speak in the target language using the sentences that you've learned. So you take your phone and hola, ¿cómo estás? Mi nombre es Mikel, encantado, blah, blah, blah. And you talk for a while in Spanish. And then you save it, and then you do it with something else, like another situation, another topic. And you do it a bunch of times. And every time you stop doing that, so you do it for 30 seconds, a minute or so, you'll struggle to form sentences first, because fluency and comprehension are not the same thing. But you've done with one topic, and then if you were listening to the audio files right before that, so you're listening to the audio files and you pause it just to recall the voice message or the this language island that you are working on, and then you continue listening, and then you try again with another topic, and again and again. And now the final part, the thing that will get your speaking going really. Once you get home after talking to yourself, trying to use the sentences that you had written, translated, created audio files, listened, repeated over and over again, and then you tried using those sentences, having a conversation with yourself, and you probably failed a few times, or you really struggle to speak. But if you recorded it, once you get home, you listen to it and you start writing everything that you didn't manage to say. And there'll be a lot of things that you couldn't say, because often when you're writing things to say, then you don't really, because you're not in the real situation, you forget about a lot of things. So let's say you were trying to talk about your job, and you started talking about your office job, but then you wanted to say a bunch of other stuff and you couldn't because you hadn't learned those lines yet. So when you're listening to it, you remember that, and uh, work in an office, and so you start writing the things that you weren't able to say. I do consulting. It's quite boring, but it pays well, or whatever. And you keep writing everything else that comes to mind. Like when you were in the moment and you were trying to say it, you could even say it in English. You're trying to speak the new language, you're really struggling because it's new, and you're starting from scratch, and you're trying to use the sentences that you learned. You can use some of them, some others you still, like, you still can't remember them well. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you can't say. Just say it in English the first few times, and then once you're here, once you're listening to them, you type everything in the translator, and you have more lines. So then you go back to the text and you paste those new lines there, and you create more audio files of those lines as well. So then you read them, listen to them, repeat them aloud over and over together with the other sentences. And tomorrow you will, again, listen to them and repeat them aloud a lot, and then try to speak again. Lots of short sessions, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 2, 3 minutes maybe, uh, if you're really motivated. And then you record everything, and then you listen to it again. And every day you keep talking to yourself, recording everything, writing down what you weren't able to say, creating bilingual text and audio files of that, listening to them, repeating them aloud, those sentences. You learn those sentences too. You try to talk to yourself again about more and more things and simulating more and more scenarios. And the more you do this, the easier it will get to talk to yourself. And at some point, you'll be speaking for yourself. You'll be speaking to yourself for hours, and it won't be a problem at all. It'll just be easy, and then you won't really struggle to speak to native speakers because you've been speaking for hours already, and it's as easy as that, right?